Well, hey guys, I'm back again, for part 2 of this video. In this video I'm going to be covering the next part of Judas Priest's history, their rise to mainstream success, their rock and roll superstar years in the 1980s, their most popular years actually. Also the band getting a new drummer, and also, at the time, the band adopts their famous leather and studs image. So yep, enjoy this video. Peace. Well again, so yep, if you haven't heard from the title, in this video I'm going to be talking about Judas Priest adopting their famous leather and studs image, the band gets a new drummer, and Judas Priest's rock and roll superstar years in the 80s and their height of popularity in the 80s, so yep. Well, following on from Stained Glass, the album was a close move to a pure heavy metal. It was a very dark album. It did not contain any ballads except the very dark Beyond the Realms of Death, recorded by drummer at the time Les Binks. So yep. In time for recording Killing Machine, well, prior to the band adopting their current appearance, before the band adopted this appearance, they used to wear the clothes of the 1970s, the fashion of the 1970s, and then shortly afterwards they started wearing Gothic style robes. And then, in time for recording the new album, the band now adopted the famous heavy metal fashion, the leather and studs image. So yep. So yep. And then the band recorded and released their 5th album, Killing Machine, which was released in the United States as Hellbent Forever, because the record company did not like the murderous implications of the title, I mean, when it got released over in the United States, so yep. And also, on the same time, on the tour for Killing Machine, the band recorded their first live album, and very first platinum album as well, called Unleash in the East. So, yep. And also at the same time, the band garnered 2 chart hits, which were in the form of Take on the World and Evening Star, both of which were performed on Top of the Pops in 1979. So yep, and being promoted, so yep. The band's drummer, Les Binks, did not like the band's direction the band were going in. The band were becoming more and more commercial, and also, as another reason, the band wanted a drummer who was less technical than Les Binks. Les Binks was more of a jazzy, technical style drummer, and the band wanted more like a rock-based drummer sound, so yep. Les Binks left the band in 1979, and then he was replaced by drummer Dave Holland, who was the former drummer in Trapeze. He just recently left Trapeze, and then he joined Judas Priest afterwards, so yep. In 1980, the band recorded what is considered by many to be pure heavy metal, and included Scotty and the Anthrax, so yep, and amongst critics and fans alike, I'll say again. Amongst critics and fans, I'll say again, so yep. And that album is British Steel, so yep. This album came out in 1980. Whereas the band's previous album had still contained the dark lyrical themes, but commercial, this album had more shorter songs and had more mainstream hooks to it, but retained the heavy metal style and feel of the album, so yep. The album contained classics which were frequently played on the radio, such as Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law, and United, United, United we stand. So, yep. And also the band made performances on Top of the Pops to promote these singles, so yep, and there were two of them, promotional videos were released for them, so yep. On the tour for this album, the band was supported by Iron Maiden on the UK leg of the tour before Maiden left Priest to launch their own tour. And so, yep. The band decided to pursue a more radio-friendly direction with their 1981 album, Point of Entry, right here. So, yep. And it contained many other stage favourites and classics and brand new songs as well, such as Heading Out to the Highway, Solar Angels and Desert Plains, all of which were performed in concert with all of the Judas Priest stage classics of the 80s. So, yep. And on the supporting tour of the album, the European legs were the first European leg was supported by Saxon, the American leg was supported by Maiden, Iron Maiden, and the second European leg was supported by all of these bands which were becoming more successful and gathering fan bases at the same time as Judas Priest. So, yep. In 1982, the band recorded what is now considered to be their best-selling album and their best album ever of all time, and in Ibiza, so, yep. And that album is Screaming for Vengeance, so, yep, featuring the well-known track, and probably their best-known track, You Got Another Thing Coming, yep. Included that track, and there were other stage classics on the album, such as Riding on the Wind, a rock radio classic, Taking These Chains, and the whole classic live tracks as well. Bloodstone, The Helion, Electric Eye, which was the stage opener replacing the previous opener called Tyrant. So, yep. For the supporting tour of that album, the band skipped the UK and Europe completely and mainly concentrated on the American market. And also a first, the tour for the album was the band's first arena tour of the United States Arena and Stadium Tour, which they toured from the summer of 1982 up to about mid-1983, which also culminated in a performance at the Reading Festival. Reading Festival? I mean, US Festival. US Festival. So, yep, in 1983, on the Heavy Metal Day, alongside acts such as Scorpions, Triumph, Quiet Riot, Van Halen, amongst others. So, yep. And in front of 450,000 something fans, and that was a great success. Though, yep. In late 1983, the band made another appearance alongside many classic heavy metal 80s acts, which were all in the same building, such as Maiden, Scorpions, Leopard, Crocus, Quiet Riot, and themselves as well. So, yep, they were in studio. In late 1983, the band recorded their next album, which was Defenders of the Faith, which contained the Metallaya on the front, which is one of many fictional messiahs created by Judas Priests. The Messiah on this album is the Helion on the album cover, which this one here is the Metallaya. So yep, it contained the rock radio classic Free Wheel Burning amongst many other songs. 1 minute, let me just. It contained the rock radio classic Free Wheel Burning amongst many other songs, stage classics such as, The Sentinel, Love Bites, Some Heads Are Going to Roll, Night Comes Down, Heavy Duty, Eat Me Alive, which was criticised by the Parents Music Resource Centre in America, and they placed it on their top 15 Filthy tracks, which was called the Filthy 15. So yep. The supporting tour for this album started in the UK and Europe, and then later heading over to Europe and then over to America. So yep, there was one infamous performance at Madison Square Garden where the stage set on fire. I think it was a result as a result of the fans. And I don't know. I think it was as a result of the fans, and as a result the band are not allowed to play at Madison Square Garden ever again, and they're still not allowed back. It was 30 years since that incident happened in 1984, so yep. The band did not make any stage appearances in 1985, but one exception is they appeared at Live Aid in 1985 in Philadelphia amongst many of the classic 1980s performers at the time. They played at Live Aid Philadelphia, and also Live Aid was held at Philadelphia and London in the UK. So yep, that was a really great success as well. So yep. For their next album, Turbo, which had a woman's hand holding a gear stick on there, the band added guitar synthesizers and a more mainstream, like I could say, glammy image to their sound. The band started becoming more glam looking, and they abandoned until they briefly their leather and their black, white, grey and silver leather and studs image, and they adopted a more colourful leather and studs wardrobe. You know, it was still leather, but with lots of colours on it, as shown in the Judas Priest Live concert on the Electric Eye DVD, which I've got over there on the shelf. So yep, it was first released in 1987 as Priest Live, and then it was re-released on DVD in the Electric Eye DVD, which contains promo videos, music videos, music is the same thing. Promo videos, performances on Top of the Pops, and it also contains the concert. And it contains the concert Priest Live, so yep. And the album did sell very well initially upon release, but the long-term reaction from fans and critics were negative, so yep. And as with other Priest albums of the 1980s, it still went platinum, so yep. Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith went double platinum respectively, so yep. And it also contained the stage classic, which is still performed today, Turbo Lover, although the band performed other songs off the album on the Fuel for Life tour that haven't been performed since that tour, such as Out in the Cold, Private Property, Rock You All Around the World, and Parental Guidance, and Reckless, so yep, and Hot Love, so yep, amongst other tracks, and One Night, Hot and Crazy Days, and many other tracks as well, so yep. In 1988, the band recorded which was their last album with Dave Holland, as he was having family, personal, and health problems at the time, which was Ram It Down. But most of that album was recorded by a drum machine, as again, Dave Holland was having family, personal, and health problems at the time. So yep, the album still went platinum gold, and the critics also said about that album and the Turbo album as well, Judas Priest was sort of like seeming out of touch with current trends in music, and so yep. And also, I forgot to mention, Turbo and Ram It Down were initially going to be a double album called Twin Turbos, but they recorded a live album, but the record company, Columbia Records, rejected the idea, and they didn't really like the idea of a double album, so they recorded them separately. The double album was supposed to be called Twin Turbos, one half featuring more commercial lighter material, aka Turbo, whilst the other half would feature more heavy and less synthesizer driven, aka Ram It Down. So yep. In 1989, Dave Holland left Judas Priest because of family health and personal problems, which forced Dave Holland to leave Judas Priest. So yep. and the band replaced him with their current drummer, who's like learning to be the drummer of Judas Priest. Before he joined Judas Priest, he used to wait out the back and hand a tape of his drum playing to one of the Judas Priest crew. So yep. And then in 1989, his big moment of glory came in 1989 when he got a call via one of Rob Halford's friends, and then he came down to see the band and audition for the band, and then he joined the band in 1989. And that drummer was Scott Travis, who was the former drummer in the band Racer X. So yep. In 1990, the band recorded the album Painkiller, which dropped all the 1980s synthesizers from the songs except Touch of Evil. So yep. And Don Airey originally played all the keyboards on the album, but his keyboard parts were deleted because the band wanted to become more heavier. They were heavier again, heavier again, more thrashy, and more thrashy looking. So yep. And also that album saw a return to Judas Priest's heavy metal sound, but with more like hints of thrash metal in them. So yep. And also at the same time, the band adopted a brand new leather and studs image, with Halford sporting tattoos on his arms, chest, back, neck, and he even had a few on his head. And also at the same time, and also as a result of this, he also started shaving his head for the first time because he didn't like his receding hairline, or in other words, I could put it, his receding hairline was getting annoying to keep up with. So yep. And he would also sport later tattoos on his head during the later years of Priest. So yep. The supporting tour featured opening bands such as Megadeth, Pantera, and Sepultura. I don't know how to say it. Sepultura, amongst other many thrash metal bands. So yep. Which also accumulated in a performance at the Rock in Rio 2 festival in 1991 in front of 100,000 fans. So yep. And that was a very great success. So yep. Later on in the year, during a show in Canada in August 1991, Rob Halford had an accident. As he was just about to come on the stage, and when he went forward onto the stage on his Harley Davidson motorcycle, he collided with the drum raiser, which was still rising. So, as he was riding out on his Harley Davidson motorcycle onto the stage, he hit his head on the drum raiser, and became unconscious briefly. So the band had to stop playing briefly, and I think Rob Halford suffered concussion. I don't know. I think he suffered concussion. So yeah. And then later, Rob Halford regained consciousness and did the whole show. So yep. And he had to later go to hospital afterwards. So yep. When I return, I'll be talking about the departure of Rob Halford, one of the controversies surrounding Priest in early 1990, and I'll also be talking about the Ripper Orange years as well. So yep. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you in part 3 of this video. Peace. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching this video. Peace. I'll see you in part 3. Peace. I've done peace several times, you know. Well, so yep, in this video, as I've mentioned in the title, I'm going to be talking about the Judas Priests adopting their famous leather and studs image, the band getting a new drummer, and the band's rock and roll superstar years in the 80s and their height of popularity in the 80s. So yep. Well, following on from Stained Class, you know, it was a very, very dark Judas Priest album, and it did not contain any ballads, except the very, very dark song written by Les Binks called Beyond the Realms of Death. So yep. Well, so yep, and In time for recording Killing Machine, the band adopted what is now famous in heavy metal. Well, before I say it, before that, Judas Priest used to wear the clothes from the 1970s, the fashion in the 1970s, and then afterwards they started wearing gothic stuff. I'll do another take of this. This might be an outtake.